Stuck in crisis mode, today he actually went back to yes winning. Mere hours after that raucous news conference at the White House, the president was on offense again, confirming another cabinet pick that had been on Senator Chuck Schumer's hit list for defeat. This time, the Senate confirmed Scott Pruitt to run the Environmental Protection Agency. But a Republican warned today that Pruitt is about to face nothing short of a bloodbath over at the EPA. Exaggeration? Not really. In an unprecedented show of defiance, hundreds of EPA bureaucrats had been lobbying the Senate to block the new boss from even getting the job. Why? Because they fear he's about to reverse years of their precious government regulations and may even be ready to eliminate a bunch of their taxpayer-funded jobs. Remember, the president warned yesterday about just this type of insurrection when he charged forces in the government were trying to wreck his presidency.
I've also worked to install a cabinet over the delays and obstruction of Senate Democrats. You've seen what they've done over the last long number of years. That will be one of the great cabinets ever assembled in American history. He wanted it, but we called. They can't make a meeting with him. Every day I walk in, I said, I would like to meet with him because I do want to solve the problem. But he probably was told by Schumer or somebody like that, some other lightweight, he was probably told, don't meet with Trump. It's bad politics. And that's part of the problem in this country.
And he also talked about all of those leaks. So what can President Trump do in the short term about a stubborn bureaucracy hell-bent on blocking his agenda? And in the long term, will the president get the last laugh by just eliminating the EPA and its nearly 15,000 employees? That's right, 15,000 employees whose salaries you pay. Myron Ebell is Director of Global Warming and International Environmental Policy at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He also led President Trump's environmental transition team. He joins us live now. This insurrection at the EPA, there were liberal government analysts quoted in the New York Times today saying this has never happened before, where you had literally a couple hundred employees at the EPA trying to block the new boss from getting his job.
Well, never before have we had a president who wants to fundamentally transform the federal government and change the course of the EPA and get rid of a lot of the regulations that they've been adding for decades.
So we're putting a spotlight on this tonight because the media kind of laughed it off when the president at the news conference was saying that the leaks we see in the intelligence community, we may see more of it at other federal agencies, that there are basically Obama holdovers who want to try to stop this president's agenda. You believe that?
Yes, and I think at the EPA you have an entire civil service bureaucracy where they are opposed to the president's agenda, and they think that it's more important to support that agenda than to do their jobs. And so this idea of defiance or insurrection, I think, is quite possible. And I think the new leadership at EPA, Scott Pruitt, the new administrator, is going to have to work very hard to get everybody in line.
And we wanted to dig deeper on the details. It's not just the EPA. If you look at federal government agencies across the board, the big departments, these government employees gave campaign money to Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, in some cases 94 to 6%. And if you just go down the line, look at this list. Agriculture Department, 99.4% of the campaign contributions from employees there went to Hillary Clinton. The Commerce Department, 98%. Education Department, 99.7%. So when you say Scott Pruitt is going to have a job on his hands, the EPA was well over 90% as well. What are these bureaucrats going to do to try to undermine him and stop the president's agenda in terms of ripping out government regulations that the president says, you get rid of these environmental regulations, the economy is going to take off?
Well, I think the problem is that the civil service has become largely a special interest agenda with its own agenda. They're supposed to be experts in administration who know how to carry out policies. So it seems to me that they have a choice to make. Are they going to be professionals, civil servants, or are they going to be activists? If they're activists, they should either resign or retire.
So is there a way for Scott Pruitt to drain the swamp, as the president talked about, over at the EPA? Because when you talk about civil service protections, to me that's code for they've got unions who are going to protect them and make sure that even if they're trying to stop the president's agenda from inside the government, you can't fire them.
I think that if there is direct insubordination, people who do not do what they're told to do, they can be disciplined or, in fact, terminated. I think the other solution is to downsize the agency. The fact is that the EPA has 15,000 employees, but over the decades they have devolved more and more of their work to the states.
So if the states are actually the ones trying to protect the environment, what are 15,000 people at the EPA doing?
Well, I think a lot of them are pursuing their own agenda, and I think we can...
And that agenda means issuing more government regulations?
Yes, exactly. You increase the power of the EPA every time you have a new regulation that harms investment and kills jobs. A lot of what the EPA does today has very little to do with improving environmental protection. It has to do with increasing their power and their control over people.
Now, to be fair and balanced, Scott Pruitt is somebody who, in Oklahoma, as the Attorney General, he has been, to say a skeptic of climate change would be the understatement perhaps of the year. And so when Christy Todd Whitman today was quoted in the New York Times, a moderate Republican, former governor of New Jersey, served as EPA administrator under George W. Bush, as you know, she said what it means is that it's going to be a bloodbath when Pruitt gets in there. She's not someone known for hyperbole. She's a moderate Republican.
Well,
what does a bloodbath mean to you?
Well, I think Christy Todd Whitman was a go-along and get-along person at EPA. She went along with the bureaucrats.
More government regulation.
And I think she wants to hype this because she represents the Republican base that really supports the status quo here.
So bottom line, Donald Trump in the campaign said he wants to get rid of the EPA. He's been keeping a lot of these campaign promises, some to his detriment politically, where people are saying he's moving too fast. Bottom line, do you think Donald Trump, as someone who's in the transition, you think President Trump is going to try to eliminate the EPA altogether?
I think we'll know fairly soon when we see his first budget request. He said he wants a 2% per annum decrease in federal expenditures, but he wants to increase military spending and keep entitlements. That means somebody's
going to be a loser.
Domestic spending is going to have to go down a lot more than 2% per annum. So let's see what the hit EPA has to take.
Yes or no? I've got 15 seconds. At the end of Donald Trump's first term, will the EPA be eliminated?
No, I think it'll take longer than that.
So the bureaucrats will keep it going?
Well, I think it's a long-term process.
Myron E. Bell, we really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
The next presidential election is still 4 years away, but President Trump seems to have already returned to campaign mode. Yesterday, it was a vintage Trump news conference. Today, he hit the road to talk up American jobs and is gearing up for a rally at an airport hangar tomorrow, yes, in Battleground, Florida, which, sounds a lot like one of those 2016 campaign events. For more details, let's head to the Sunshine State. That's where we find our correspondent, Kristen Fisher. Good evening, Kristen.
Hey, Ed. Well, President Trump moved into the White House exactly 4 weeks ago today. And since then, we've really seen a lot of him. He's been in meetings. We've seen him on phone calls. We've seen him signing executive orders. But we haven't really seen him in his element, or at least the element that we grew accustomed to during the campaign at those big rallies, tons of supporters, sparring with reporters. Until yesterday. Yesterday was his first solo press conference as president, and he was classic candidate Trump. He attacked the press for being dishonest. He attacked leakers in the intelligence community, called them criminal leaks. He attacked Democrats for delaying his cabinet confirmations. He even attacked his old opponent, Hillary Clinton. He mentioned her 12 times in about 80 minutes. And President Trump really enjoyed it. He even said that he was having a good time. Then today, he stopped by what really could have been a campaign event in South Carolina, stopped by the Boeing assembly plant that makes that new 787 Dreamliner, and he used the event to talk about 3 of his core campaign promises: to create jobs, improve trade, and lower taxes on American businesses.
This plane, as you know, was built right here in the great state of South Carolina. Our goal as a nation must be to rely less on imports and more on products made here in the USA. Right here in the USA.
And then tomorrow, we're going to see his first big rally as President of the United States. It'll be at an airplane hangar in Melbourne, Florida. That's about 2 hours away from here, right near Orlando. And hundreds, maybe thousands of people are expected to show up. And to be very clear here, this is a campaign event. The White House says it is paid for by his campaign. even though the next election, of course, is still 4 years away. Now, the other big thing on President Trump's to-do list while he's down here in Palm Beach at his winter White House this weekend is he's going to be interviewing potential candidates for his national security advisor. And we know one meeting that is definitely going to be taking place, and that is with his acting national security advisor, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. Some of the other names in the mix: General David Petraeus, General Keith Alexander, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, Stephen Hadley, and then one new name just added to the list tonight, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Now, before I go, one more thing, Ed. There was a very minor incident that took place tonight as the presidential motorcade was making its way from the airport to Mar-a-Lago. Somebody threw something at the motorcade, and the Secret Service is now investigating. In fact, they released a statement, and it reads in part, "The Secret Service can confirm that an object appears to have been thrown at the motorcade this afternoon. We are investigating at this time and don't have anything further." So we don't know who threw it. We don't know what was thrown, but nobody was hurt. Ed.
Well, it's good to hear nobody was hurt. A lot of protesters out there around Mar-a-Lago. Stay safe this weekend. Good to see you. Up next, is President Trump winning his war with the media? On the heels of an epic news conference, there's a new Fox poll out tonight that suggests his strategy may be working. We'll debate it fair and balanced. And we'll show you what the president just tweeted to the media. Also, a girl in New York was given a bad grade on a homework assignment. That happens, but this time she didn't want to answer an anti-Trump question. Really? We'll talk to the girl's father, who's anything but happy. Did we mention the girl's just 11 years old? Wow.
Over 1 million businesses have already used ZipRecruiter. Try it for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/Fox.
Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system. The press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it. The press, honestly, is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control. No, the reporting is fake.
And if I may ask, I just want to ask
Jim, you know what it is? Here's the thing. The public isn't, they read newspapers, they see television, they watch. They don't know if it's true or false because they're not involved. I'm involved. I've been involved with this stuff all my life, but I'm involved. So I know when you're telling the truth or when you're not. I just see many, many untruthful things. And I'll tell you what else I see. I see tone, the word tone. The tone is such hatred. I'm really not a bad person, by the way.
Well, President Trump played rough with the media yesterday. Did you think he'd back off today? Come on. This is Donald Trump. Today, the president tweeted, quote, "The fake news media is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people." The usual suspects in the mainstream media immediately howled on social media that this was un-American. They seem to be forgetting that during the campaign, Hillary Clinton tweeted something a little bit similar. I'm sure there was just as much howling then, right? No? Oh, okay. We'll get to that in a minute. For now, a brand new Fox poll suggests the president may be winning his war with the media. The poll of 1,000 registered voters found 68% believe the media is tougher on President Trump than on President Obama. Also, 45% trust President Trump more than they trust the media, though 42% say they trust the media more, right within the margin of error. Slight advantage Trump. But can that advantage hold, and is there any danger to labeling the press the enemy of the people? Jessica Tarlov is director of research for Bustle.com. Richard Lowry is editor-in-chief of National Review. Color me lucky to say they're both joining us live right now. And Jessica, I said on Twitter that I was bringing on two rock stars. I promised that
But you don't want me to sing, right?
But I don't want either one of you to sing. But then someone tweeted back. Someone tweeted back that they want to know if Jessica was bringing a violin, and I assume that's because
a tiny one?
Tiniest violin.
They think you're going to hear this sad song about Donald Trump was so mean to the media. He's unhinged, he's misinformed, and that maybe you and other Democrats realize Donald Trump was elected.
Oh, I absolutely realize that. I've been dealing with this reality for almost 4 weeks now, since inauguration. Before that, I was still a little hazy. No, I've come to grips with it. And Donald Trump won by being the Donald Trump we saw yesterday in that press conference. It was a base rallying cry there. He campaigned on the news is fake. Right? And he repeated that yesterday. The leaks are real, but the news is fake. There is something interesting also within that Fox poll, though. While 68% think that the media is tougher on Trump than they were on Obama, which I do think is true, partly due to how Donald Trump treats the media itself. There's a defensiveness that he's created. 55% said that they do want the press to cover him aggressively. So that implies that they want them to continue fighting back, to say things like, wait, I'm going to ask again. Please explain to me the timeline of when you found out about whatever conversation General Flynn had with the Russians. Can we get a yes or no answer to our questions? So the American public may think that he's not being treated like Obama was treated, but they want them to keep going. They want the truth.
Rich, you wrote today online at National Review that what's going to matter is not the theater of these news conferences or the back and forth, perhaps, of General Flynn. There may be there or not. What's going to matter is results on tax reform, on not just repealing but replacing Obamacare. So how is he doing on that score?
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be a press conference like yesterday. It's a lot of fun for everyone. You know, when Trump said, look, I'm not ranting and raving, I'm actually having a good time, he was telling the truth. He enjoys this. But his ultimate revenge on the media will be governing successfully and building a popular mandate to be elected for a second term. So I think he needs to get his White House on a firmer managerial footing. He needs to fill out his administration. He needs to focus on jobs. You know, the event he did yesterday with the miners, the event he did today with Boeing really should be the focus. And then getting a few big things done on Capitol Hill. The Gorsuch nomination, which is going to happen, but then Obamacare, repeal and replace, and tax reform, which are bigger, more complex tasks.
Jessica, I'm a little sad for you tonight because, you know, we're going to have...
But I'm so happy, Ed.
Well, I'm sad because Senator Rand Paul is coming up in a few moments. And I talked to him about Obamacare, and he's bringing a plan to this very anchor desk to not just repeal but replace Obamacare. And so I'm sad because this talking point you've had so long about Republicans not being able to replace Obamacare is no more.
Well, we'll see what the plan looks like. And the truth of the matter is it's only 16% of Republicans now who actually want Obamacare to be repealed. There's a lot in there that they do like. We know that kids being able to stay on their insurance until 26 is overwhelmingly popular, as well as maintaining pre-existing conditions. If Rand Paul can find the money to, you know, get rid of the individual mandate and the country keeps ticking, then great. I'd love to hear that out. Republicans are in power. I'm facing it. I know we have to work together. But right now, I think Orrin Hatch has the right idea, which is repair and not repeal. So one more night of that talking point.
Rich, tell me also, I remember, to be fair and balanced here, that every time Barack Obama went out and decided to visit one of the states across the country, Republicans jumped on him and said, he's in campaign mode. All this guy does is campaign. Not even a month has passed. Donald Trump's maybe in a little bit of hot water. He's campaigning. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, no?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a country now where the campaigning literally never ends. And look, I think he enjoys it. He enjoys the crowd. He feeds off them. We saw that in the campaign. And he doesn't want to stop when he's president of the United States. So this is, both sides do it. Both sides complain about it, but it's a reality.
Well, Jessica, what about, I mentioned this tweet that got some of the mainstream media a Twitter this afternoon, if you will, about Donald Trump suggesting that the media is against the country. The fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It's the enemy of the American people. Democrats freaked out about this, but they seem to forget in late 2015, Hillary Clinton was on Twitter saying, not the exact same thing, but Hillary on the enemies she's proud to have made, quote, the NRA, health insurance companies, drug companies, the Iranians, okay, fine, they're the enemy, but Republicans, she said, were enemies.
Yeah, I mean, that's a totally different debate. I remember talking about it and saying that it was inadvisable to me. I didn't like it also. At one point, she compared the GOP to terrorists when we were having a conversation about the war on women. That obviously wasn't smart, but they're not comparable. And it's not just Democrats that are upset about that tweet. It's everyone on both sides of the aisle. The Constitution is obviously critically important to the functioning of this country. That tweet shows that Donald Trump has very little respect for the First Amendment. And I can think back to just yesterday in that press conference, that line about the fact that the travel ban was rolled out well, but he got a bad court, as if his steak was cooked improperly or something like that. This is not how America works. 3 separate branches of government, all equally powerful, all checks and balances.
But this is what you need to understand. It's not a violation of the First Amendment for the president to say things.
No,
right?
of course
not.
not.
If you were shutting down the press, that'd be something different. Now, I don't like labeling anyone an enemy of the American people. It sounds, Jacobin to me. But criticizing a court, criticizing the press, it's all part of a freewheeling debate.
Rich, you would never call a federal judge a so-called judge.
No, I wouldn't. But it's fine to say that the decision is wrong and tramples on the president's authority, which it does.
I want to give you each 15 seconds to Rich's original point. Let's bring it back to substance, which is what the American people care about. Jobs, tax cuts that he promised in the campaign. So there was this sort of freak out in the mainstream media that he's in crisis mode. Things are falling apart. He might lose his chief of staff. All this freak out. And yet we see at the beginning of the Clinton administration there were all kinds of mistakes. They lost some cabinet picks. So 15 seconds each, starting with Rich. Has valuable time slipped for him to actually repeal and replace Obamacare, get tax reform, or is he still on target?
Well, time is slipping, but we've forgotten because we basically haven't done any legislating in 6 years. It's complicated, it's messy, and I think Trump actually directed congressional Republicans in the right direction. Do repeal and replace at the same time, and that's going to be a little harder and it's more complicated, but get it right.
Jessica, final word?
I definitely think if they're going to do it, that they need to do both at the same time. If even one American loses their health insurance, it's going to be a lot more people at those town halls. But I would say, going back to Rich's earlier point, if Donald Trump can deliver 4% GDP growth, he's going to get reelected. And that's where elections are won and lost. So
Jessica thinks he might be reelected. She didn't say he will, but he might be.
Do you know how hard it is to get 4% GDP growth?
Jessica, Rich, I promised that we'd have rock stars. You delivered. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ed.
Up next, perhaps no Western nation is more welcoming to Muslim refugees than Sweden. How is this wave of diversity working out for them? We'll get a special visit from the man himself, Tucker. He's back. He talked to a filmmaker who decided to go and get those answers. Scouts over the president's immigration policy. It should be coming early next week when President Trump says his administration will release a new executive order following up on his previous decree issuing a timeout on travel from 7 Muslim nations. During his news conference yesterday, the president said this.
Let me tell you about the travel ban. We had a very smooth rollout of the travel ban, but we had a bad court. We got a bad decision. We had a court that's been overturned, again, may be wrong, but I think it's 80% of the time, a lot. We had a bad decision. We're going to keep going with that decision. We're going to put in a new executive order next week sometime, but we had a bad decision.
Obviously, we'll let you know the moment that order drops so we can cue the outrage. Speaking of arrivals from Muslim countries, perhaps no nation on earth is more committed to accepting foreign migrants and refugees than Sweden. 2016 alone, the country accepted more than 160,000 asylum seekers, despite having a population of less than 10 million people. Only 500 of these migrants were able to get jobs in Sweden. But if these arrivals aren't able to work, they're at least able to commit crimes, quite a few of them, in fact. Ami Horowitz is a filmmaker. He went to Sweden to chronicle its refugee experience. Here's a short clip of what he found.
Did you see the violence really spreading across Sweden into the cities?
At least 1 or 2 times a week.
And let's say 5 years ago, how often would you say it was?
No, 3 times a year.
Really? The increase in this kind of crime is exponential.
I think we caught off guard. We didn't expect it to be so much increase.
Tucker spoke with the filmmaker earlier this week.
Ami, thanks a lot for coming on. So before you describe what you saw there, give us the overview. What is the justification within Sweden for importing this many migrants from other countries? Why are they doing it?
Well, in Sweden's own words, they consider themselves to be a humanitarian superpower, probably the only superpower that they would qualify for. So they feel that it's their moral duty to open their borders to all and any refugees that want to come to them.
So you've recently spent time there. Tell me if I'm overstating this. I don't think many people in Sweden think this is working well. Is that fair to say?
No, it's not fair to say, actually. In fact, most people that you ask about the refugee crisis, they will say, because the reason why I did the whole thing to begin with, taking a step back, was that there was an absolute surge in both gun violence and rape in Sweden once they began this open door policy. So they know that this crime is happening. They can feel it. The statistics are clear. But they would refer to what is the root cause behind it and say, oh, it's just more, it happened to be more violence. It's men who are raping people, not the refugees. They'll make excuses for it. The majority of the population in Sweden still want to have an open door policy. It's confounding.
Huh, that's remarkable. Now, the statistics on the crime rise that you just referred to, there have been reports in the American press that those statistics are either closely held by the Swedish authorities or they've been manipulated by the Swedish authorities to downplay the role of migrants in those crimes. Is that true?
Well, it depends. The crime statistics are the crime statistics, and they're not closely held. They're open to the public, and they do show this incredible surge of violence. What may actually be the problem is that they oftentimes try to cover up some of these crimes. That, for example, there's been a rash of these rapes, these music festivals, and what happens is they cover up as far as they could who the perpetrators were or if actually rapes had actually occurred. Now, obviously, when you have so many people witnessing these rapes, they're difficult to do, and they've come out to the public. But I think that's kind of what they're referring to, that the government has gone out of its way to try to cover up some of these problems.
That is grotesque. So to the job numbers, we had in the intro something like 160,000 asylum seekers, only 500 wound up working in Sweden. That leaves a lot of unemployed people. What are they doing and how are they living?
Oh, they live great, Tucker. I mean, it's one of the most generous, financial programs that they have in terms of the amount of money they're giving to them, the housing benefits they get, the education benefits they get, the cash benefits they get. So they have these, and what they really become are no-go zones. These are areas that cops won't even enter because it's too dangerous for them. This is the policy of the National Police Authority in Sweden. So they live in these enclaves, which, by the way, are lovely. They're leafy neighborhoods. They're beautiful apartments. And they are sitting around. You're right. It's difficult to get jobs. There's too many of them. But they have tremendous benefits there, which is why so many of these migrants are going to Sweden to begin with.
Now, we know that the masochism of the West really knows no bounds at all. So I believe you when you say that it's not often people say out loud, I'm dissatisfied with this arrangement. I know Swedes, though, who at least in private will say this is a disaster. What's the social sanction for saying that out loud? Can you just say, this isn't working, or do people come down on you for saying something like that?
Oh, you can say it, but you're a racist. You're a xenophobe, right? You're Islamophobe. When I was out there, I remember I was at this kind of swanky party in Stockholm, and I started discussing what I was doing there, and the entire party kind of gathered around me and started yelling at me that all those things. I'm a xenophobe. I'm a racist. I'm anti-Islamic. Even though the statistics were clear about who's the perpetrators, it doesn't make a difference. It's very socially unacceptable to make these kind of claims.
Right, because the most important thing is to feel virtuous, I guess. Ami Horowitz, that's amazing. One last question, I can't resist. What's the long game here? How is this going to look 10 or 15 years from now? Does it seem like assimilation is taking place?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, we don't have to actually prognosticate on what the long game is. You can look at France and Belgium, because they've been doing it for that period of time, for longer. And you can see the social unrest that's going on there, the terrorism that's happening there. Sweden, this is a relatively new policy, phenomenon for them. And by the way, Sweden had its first terrorist Islamic attack not that long ago. So they're now getting the taste of what we've been seeing across Europe already.
Sad. Thanks a lot for joining us. Ami Horowitz.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker. We're about a month into the Trump administration, and the GOP is still getting its legislative ducks in a row on repealing Obamacare. I sit down with Senator Rand Paul, who says he has the plan Republicans should use to replace a law that a top insurance official said this week is facing a death spiral. Plus, we'll talk to a father in New York City whose daughter was punished for refusing to fill out anti-Trump rhetoric on her homework. The girl is just 11 years old. Really?
1 year. Visit SaveOnSymbicort.com today to learn more.
We've begun preparing to repeal and replace Obamacare. Obamacare is a disaster, folks. It's a disaster.
That was President Trump at Thursday's news conference. Obamacare was supposed to be a day one target for the Trump administration, but after close to a month, there has been very little movement. But if Republicans haven't taken action yet, it's not thanks to Senator Rand Paul, who says he has just the plan for nixing Obamacare and actually implementing a cheaper, more free market approach to health care. Senator Paul joins us now. It's good to see you, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start by just diagnosing the problem first, which is that lost in all this other news, that extraordinary news conference that President Trump had this week, is that the CEO of Aetna actually said that Obamacare is in a death spiral. That's pretty dramatic.
The death spiral is this. Basically, in order for the insurance companies to make money and in order for the insurance model to work, people have to buy insurance that are healthy, a lot of them, in order to pay for the people who get sick when they have insurance. Right now, many young, healthy people are not buying insurance because Obamacare told them, oh, you can buy it after you get sick. But it doesn't work if everybody waits to buy insurance after they're sick. The other problem that Obamacare did is Obamacare added all these mandates. Like there's 10 or 11 things that every insurance has to cover. So whether you're married or not, you have to have pregnancy coverage. Or whether you're even having kids anymore, maybe you're 75 years old, you got to have pregnancy coverage. What that did is it added expense, and then that added to the adverse selection that young people didn't want to buy it because of the expense.
So you're a doctor. What's the prescription? We've heard Democrats say for a long time, all you guys want to do is repeal this. You actually don't have a plan to replace it. Tonight you came with one.
Yeah, I think what we want to do is our goal is somewhat the same. Left or right, conservative or liberal, we want more people to have insurance, and we want it to be more affordable. Affordable Care Act, what Obama called it. But it turned out to be unaffordable because he loaded it with so many mandates that it increased the cost of your insurance. So my plan does this. My plan legalizes the forms of all insurance to be sold. What does that mean? You can buy catastrophic insurance. So if you're 22 years old, you may not want it to cover everything under the sun. You may want to have a $2,000 deductible and say, I want cheaper insurance. That's illegal under Obamacare. We legalize that again. You can buy catastrophic insurance. We let you save for it through a health savings account. We let you use your health savings account to pay your premium, your deductible, your copay, weight loss program, exercise program, vitamins, preventative care. You can do all of that under your HSA, and we give you a tax credit in your HSA to help you save.
I heard you say that this is not going to cost taxpayers anything new. And you know your folks back home in Kentucky, our viewers all around the country, they hear somebody say, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help. And they say, all right, let me go grab my wallet, Senator.
There's no government program in what I'm offering. What I'm offering is expanded marketplace. Now, there is the return of your own money. So if you pay taxes, you'll get to keep some of your money, but it's yours, not the government. You get to keep your money, and it gets to go into a health savings account. So we legalize the sale of inexpensive insurance, help you save for it in a health savings account. And then the third thing is really interesting. We let individuals join associations. So if you're a mom and pop and you own a plumbing business, we let you join an association with thousands of other people to give you leverage to lower your price.
Two quick questions in one. Timetable. The president said this week, made some news and said his plan for replacing will come out mid-March, probably around the time of the new budget. Is it realistic to think that you and he and others can come together on a plan, work out the difference by the end of this year, number one? And number two, I wonder about the fact that you and other Republicans railed against President Obama and say he did this with Democratic-only votes, and that's why Obamacare, one reason it was not durable. What are you doing to reach across the aisle and, in kind, say, we're actually going to get Democratic votes for this?
You know, I would love to have Democrats on board, and what we picked are things that really try to meet the same goals that Democrats wanted. More insurance for more people, more access. Now, whether we'll get them or not is up to them. I'm trying to convince them, but I don't know if we'll get any on board.
So can you do it by the end of the year?
But let's say Democrats alone passed Obamacare and Republicans alone undo it. Well, then the next stage is going to take people to work together. So my replacement bill is going to take 60 votes in the Senate. We will have to have Democrats for the replacement bill. But I'm putting it out there. I'm inviting conversation. We want everybody to participate in this. We should all have the same goals. It shouldn't be about which party you're in. We should have the same goals, less expensive insurance for more people.
Last quick thing, you know, a lot of the president's supporters who voted him in, voted in a Republican House and Senate say, you said you were going to do this quickly. Can this get done by the end of the year, realistically?
It's going to be done in the next month or two. I mean, really, we're not waiting. This isn't going to be.
The plan will get through both chambers and be on the president's desk next month.
We're not going to be talking about this in July.
All right. Well, we're going to have you back to see if it works. Thanks, Senator.
If I have anything to say about it.
All right.
All right.
Senator Rand Paul, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Tucker will be following up. A New York father is steaming after he saw anti-Trump propaganda in his daughter's homework assignment. His daughter is 11. They're already trying to indoctrinate her and your children, maybe, to hate President Trump. We'll talk to the dad after the break.
It's your TV,
Take it with you with DirecTV and AT&T. Stream live TV.
A father in New York City tonight is irate after a teacher injected politics into his 11-year-old daughter's homework. Vincent Ungro of Staten Island was helping his daughter with a vocabulary assignment. Seems simple enough when the wording of the questions caught his eye. One question, for instance, read, yes, President Trump speaks in a very superior and blank manner, insulting many people. He needs to be more blank so that the American people respect and admire him. Ungro told his daughter not to answer, and in response, her teacher, Adria Zawatsky, took off 15 points. What the heck? Vincent Ungro joins us live on FaceTime from his kitchen. Mr. Ungro, we appreciate you being there. What was your initial reaction? What was your initial reaction? He's joining us by FaceTime.
My initial reaction was, I was stunned. You know, this is, first, I just want to say that, like, the school that they go to is a wonderful school. My children have excelled in it. They've done really well in it. This was not a school protocol exam or a homework assignment. This was an enrichment, which the school does, the teachers do on their own time, and it's a wonderful thing. But this was strictly from this one teacher, her words, her sentences. And I looked at it, and I just couldn't believe that sentence, out of all the sentences in the world that could have been used, that she would do something to try to slip in an anti-Trump statement, and I didn't take too kindly to it.
Have you spoken to her and or the principal?
Well, yes. What wound up happening is, with all the exposure that it did get, she was disciplined. She got a red flag in her file, and my daughter was awarded the 15 points back, which is a nice thing, you know. It was wonderful for them to do that. So I guess it's a case closed thing now, but it's good to keep the conversation open, because one thing that this taught us is that we have to be a little bit more diligent into what the schools might be teaching our students about their political views rather than their parents, and it should stay out of the classroom.
Well, and Vince, you make an excellent point, because Tucker, in particular, who's normally in this chair, does a lot about what he calls, college campus craziness. But this is, your daughter's 11 years old, so it sounds like the indoctrination is starting much sooner than many of us even thought.
Yeah, a lot sooner, and that's what scares me, and that's why I kind of wanted my voice to be out there. And I've done several different things already, and the word has gotten out there. On Staten Island alone, the one website received over 800 or 850 comments, and over 90% of them, I would say, were overwhelmingly in my favor. So there's many other people that feel that way, and it's unfortunate that maybe some other people didn't step up, and besides me.
Sure.
But I felt it was time to do that. I mean, one, to protect my daughter, and another thing, to protect my president.
Good for you speaking up, but on the other side, there are not a lot of people who are shy in the so-called #resist movement. Are there parents on the left standing up, fighting on behalf of this teacher?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't heard too much. Some of the comments in there were saying that she's been there for a long time and the children love her, and things like that. But not too much as far as sticking up for her. I'm more so on my side, I would say.
Mr.
And I think that's great.
Last question, as from your perspective now, how this impacted your daughter, as you look almost 30 days into the Trump administration, it seems like there's a lot of people who still have not accepted the results of the last election. I'm from Long Island, and what I know about Staten Island is people don't hold back. What's happening in this country right now?
I really don't know. There are a lot of Trump supporters out there, but I think we're still in the silent, majority. And I personally would like to see more people stand up for the president. A lot of people talk the talk. It's time to walk the walk. And when somebody's doing something that's unethical, as what this teacher did, or other things that would disparage the president or try to disparage this country, we should stand up for it. And as an American and as a father, I felt it was the right thing to do. And the one thing I think that I did teach my daughter was that you can accomplish a lot by just using a pen, some patience, a little persistence. You don't have to wear funny costumes. You don't have to riot in the streets. You don't have to destroy other people's property. It's not the way to go about doing things.
Mr.
And I think the way that I did it was really well, and it's working out really well.
And we applaud you and especially appreciate that you stood up for your daughter beyond all of the other politics stuff out there. Have a wonderful evening and a good weekend with your family. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. You and yours.
The latest edition of Mean Tweets next.
I enlisted in the Army in 2005.
It's been hard on journalists. It used to be all caviar and champagne, right? These days, it's ramen noodles out of a red Solo cup. But now a retired journalist wants to give us a break. A GoFundMe page has been created looking to raise money to send free pizza to the newsrooms of the Washington Post and the New York Times as a reward for their tough coverage of President Trump. So far, the page has raised close to $5,000. If it raises enough, the organizer says he'll send pizza to every newsroom in the country. Think he'll save some for Fox? And me filling in leads me to a Friday night mini version of Mean Tweets. Let me start by saying thank you to so many of you who welcomed me into your living room or the screen on your smartphone while Tucker was away the last 3 nights. But it clearly did not sit well with some. At SoCalMan15 sent a few tweets, including, like you as White House correspondent, show host not so much. Next time Tucker's on leave, please stay home. Yowza. When I tweeted we should have SoCal on the show by phone to elaborate, another viewer tweeted that segment would be the unfriendly zone. Meanwhile, at PoopDog992 tweeted, he likes my reporting, but this, quote, is like Billy Ripken substituting for Cal. Watching Ed co-host is painful. Man, that's brutal. But wait, your handle on Twitter is really PoopDog? As Iowa starting line noted, when you've lost PoopDog, you've lost the nation. But I'm happy to report PoopDog got a smackdown from at Exozone, who had my back tweeting, Ed Henry rocks. Shut up, Poop. Tucker Carlson can only work 30 hours a week cause hashtag Obamacare. Don't be silly. Even when he's here, Tucker doesn't even work 25 hours a week. No, I kid because Tucker's a friend. He had some well-deserved time off with the family. He's back in this chair on Monday, and then